Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming into another video. All right, so now let's talk Sixers Heat. Since we're breaking down the series of these playoffs, second round, I figured I'd jump into another one. Sixers Heat. Obviously, we're talking about Joel Embiid, orbital fracture, torn ligament in his thumb. The orbital fracture has him listed as out indefinitely. They're not certain if they're going to require surgery there. Obviously, if surgery is required, you've seen the last of him in these playoffs. I personally think he's just going to throw in a mask like last time and get right back out there. He'll clear concussion protocol and he'll throw in a mask for the rest of the playoffs. Look, Joel Embiid is committed to playing through injury that needs surgery. So, what's another? That's basically it. The logic is, what's another? You already need surgery on the hand. So, if you're going to stop playing games because you need surgery on something, that should have already been done. Now, the question I have is, of course, the same question everybody's asking. Why the heck was he in the game? The answer? Doc Rivers. The end. I keep telling y'all. Doc Rivers ain't that guy. I say it every time I talk about the Philadelphia 76ers because it needs to be understood. He's riding high off that Boston Celtics championship, and I'm telling you, the brains behind that was Tom Thibodeau. The defensive side of the ball is what made that Celtics team what they were. Besides the 4 Hall of Famers that they had running around, it was the defensive side of their scheming that made them a champion. But whatever. Anyway, point is, he left Joel in that game because he was afraid of blowing yet another 3-1 lead, which is also a 3-0 lead. So he kept that man in the game even though they were up 20-something. On the road, with like only a couple minutes left in the fourth quarter. Yes, he left his most important player with a hand that needs surgery. Shouldn't have even been playing in this series. But he left him on the floor in a situation where he shouldn't have been out there. In a situation where we just seen this 2 weeks ago with the Dallas Mavericks doing with Luka Doncic, the exact same thing. He got hurt there. Missed a couple games in that series. So Doc didn't learn nothing. Doc didn't care. Doc was more concerned with people talking about how he was going to blow yet another one of those leads, which we know you would have blown if Toronto would have taken care of business. But whatever, I digress. The point is he gets to lose here in this series, and that's exactly what's going to happen without Joel Embiid. Why? Because they don't have Joel Embiid. Just said it. At the end of the day, it's this. Joel Embiid is the most dominant center in the game today. And I love Nikola Jokic. I say Nikola Jokic is the most talented center because he passes the ball and does all these different things at a high efficiency rate. But Joel Embiid is such an imposing big figure that basically plays guard style of basketball. He's doing fadeaways. He's doing post moves. He's doing everything. He shoots threes. He could drive at the basket. He has pirouettes and different Euro steps and stuff like that a big man should never, ever be allowed to do. He should be illegal. Watching him play is not fair. And it must be how it felt to watch Wilt Chamberlain. Obviously, I'm a Shaq fan, so I know how that goes. It's not fair. But it is fair when he's dealing with 2 injuries that both require surgery. That evens up the score quite a bit, especially when you're considering the fact that he's going up against one of the best defensive centers in basketball, Bam Adebayo, who is too fighting back some injuries as well. I'm not really sure exactly what's going on with Bam's health, but I know he's fighting through something. So it is what it is. Here's the deal, man. The Miami Heat are one of the best defensive teams in the league right now. And they have what I think is a good scheme going where they're using the back of their bench to start the playoffs and they're working their way forward in terms of usage. They're giving the guys like Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, you're seeing some of those guys get more run earlier in the series and they're doing an excellent job with those minutes. Victor Oladipo, you saw step in a closeout game, played big. They just have so much depth. You think about a guy like P.J. Tucker, who's going to be harassing and doing different things. Markieff Morris, who won a championship with the Lakers on the back of their bench. Caleb Martin, who's been excellent, even though I think he's playing hurt as well. I think he hurt his wrist or something. I don't know how he's doing, but he was also essential to what they were doing in that previous series. So, against Atlanta. The Heat, as I said, you already know what I think. Philadelphia's losing this series. You ain't got to wait too long for my prediction. And it's not just because Joel is out. It's because I don't like their bench. And I don't particularly think that Doc Rivers is going to make the right decision with that bench, as he's proven to do since he only plays a couple people. Now, Paul Reed was a guy who went 4 for 5 off of the bench in the last game. He's somebody who didn't have the greatest series but had a good end to the series. I want to see if the minutes that he's given are going to continue to be rewarded with efficiency. He is important since Doc likes using that bench that I don't think is that talented. You need guys on that bench to play well. Shake Milton, with the minutes you're given, you have to play well. Obviously, much has been said about, oh my guy's name is gone out of my head. Matisse Thybulle, who plays defense, but of course has not taken the vaccine, so he couldn't play in Toronto, et cetera, et cetera. He's an important player. Him being efficient on the offensive end is essential because it allows for them to keep him on the floor to do what it does best, which is play defense. He's one of the best defenders in basketball, and he just needs to be able to hit a shot or two to justify keeping him out there with any and everybody, because he can only play in certain lineups because of it. Now, James Harden needs his flowers. He needs his respect. He didn't get it in the last series for me. He's getting it now. His facilitating has been fantastic. He's upped his defense, and he's been more efficient than people have given him credit. He has not been a problem at all for the Philadelphia 76ers in this series that they just had against the Atlanta Hawks. He did exactly what he needed to do to facilitate the basketball. Excuse me, not the Atlanta Hawks, against the Toronto Raptors. He did what he needed to do to facilitate the basketball in such a way that kept himself above 10 assists in the games that he was intent on doing so. That is something he needs to keep doing. Get Tyrese Maxey the ball, get Tobias Harris the ball, etc. Make sure that those guys are playing well. Danny Green, huge player in this series. Obviously won 2 NBA championships, or was it 3? Was it 3? 3 NBA championships. One with the Spurs, one with Toronto, and of course one with the Lakers. And now he's in a situation where he could possibly go for a fourth if he can do his part in weathering the storm of Joel Embiid's absence. They're going to be playing small ball now, because they don't have a legitimate center. With respect to DeAndre Jordan, I would never play him. Same with Paul Millsap at this point. These guys can't be played. I don't even know how they're rostered, to be honest with you. But nevertheless, they're on the bench. That's who they're going to be playing at that center position in Joel's stead, and I ultimately don't like that for them at all. They traded away Drummond in the trade that got them James Harden, traded away Curry. Those are 2 players that definitely would have helped them in this series quite a bit. And I just don't know that the size, what they bring to the table size-wise is going to be enough to deal with Bam, really. Now, my thing about the Miami Heat start of the season was that they didn't have a center. They didn't have a power forward to complement their center. They did bring in P.J. Tucker, but I've always looked at him as a 3. Even though everybody runs him at the 4, I still don't look at him at 4. But nevertheless, he runs the 4 at a high clip, plays excellent defense, but he's just a bit undersized, and that's a thing. I don't like undersized, to be honest with you. It's too many long, wingy, tough, tall guys to be running undersized guys. But if they play like P.J. Tucker, you can definitely feel good about it. So, nevertheless, they got him running at the power forward position. They got a guy like Dwayne Dedmon, who's had some really good minutes in these playoffs as well. They got a guy by the name of Yort 7, who I think is a really big-time guy who could play in second units and third units if they choose to call his number. So it's kind of a power forward by committee kind of thing, and I'm not in love with that. I think you're more likely to have success against them in small ball lineups than probably most other teams in these playoffs. So that works in Miami's favor. Works in Philadelphia's favor, because that allows them to play without Joel Embiid, run Tobias Harris and Thybulle in some lineups, which I think would probably be a good idea, some small ball with those 2 as their front court, and just see what happens there. Good as Tobias Harris has been, as tough as Thybulle is defensively, you may be able to get away with it when Bam sits down. It might be a better option than DJ. DJ ain't stretching the floor anyway, so then it becomes a situation who gives you the best chance defensively, DJ or Thybulle, if you want to do that. And of course the answer is Thybulle, even though DJ's big. DJ is not a guy who can help you anymore. So I wouldn't do that. I would run them in small ball lineups at the center when Bam sits down, depending on depending on if Dedmon's on the floor or not. If Dedmon's on the floor, scrap that. So just little things I'm thinking about, to help them try to match up, because they're so short-handed without Joel. It's going to be tough. But if James Harden continues to facilitate the way he has, and then, of course, Tyrese Maxey continues to play like a superstar, which we saw here and there every other game, basically, in this first series, then they're going to be competitive. They're going to be competitive. Philadelphia doesn't necessarily have to roll over just because Joel is out. Um, the way that Maxey, Harden, and Harris have been playing should still keep them in the game. To be completely honest with you, that's how good those three have been playing. They should still be around. Question is, how bad do they break down defensively? And much has been said about Joel Embiid's inefficiency to guard those forwards that the Toronto Raptors had. So it wasn't like they were killing the world out there defensively with Joel. So I don't know. It's something to think about. Again, Thybulle's one of the best defensive players in the game. So your defense doesn't have to suck necessarily just because Joel's not out there if you're using Thybulle properly. So it's a lot of things that you look at in this situation to say, okay, I don't think Philly gets swept here. I don't. I think Philly gets a game, maybe even get 2 games without Joel Embiid, because I do think, and what I saw from that Philadelphia team allowed me to have more confidence in them than I had going into that series. Fact of the matter is, they showed a hell of a lot of heart, man. Philadelphia 76ers showed a hell of a lot of heart in that Game 6 in Toronto, beating that team by 1 trillion points. And I think they would have felt really good going into the series if Doc Rivers would have just set Joel Embiid like a normal person instead of having him out there with a 30-point lead like 4 minutes ago, and then he doesn't get elbowed in the face by Pascal Siakam. Then we don't have this conversation. We're talking about how they look with Joel Embiid and how he can manage that thumb as he continues to. But now with him being out, you just feel like the Philadelphia 76ers have a puncher's chance at maybe a game or 2. But that's about it. That's about it. He's going to have to put that mask on and play every single one of these games in order for his team to have a chance to win this series. They can't be dropping games without him. They have to find ways to win those games, and against a good defensive team with a healthy Bam or semi-healthy Bam. I just don't see it. You got Jimmy Butler. He's been fighting back injury. You got, obviously, Kyle Lowry, who's still fighting back injury. Maybe that works in your favor since they got some players who are banged up. But I don't expect Jimmy and Kyle to miss too many games of this series, especially Jimmy. Jimmy will be around soon. It's just, and then he's been playing some of the best basketball of anyone in the playoffs. So when you consider what they're dealing with on the wing, you got to guard Jimmy. Forget everybody else, including Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, and all these guys are going to be splashing all over your heads. You got to also deal with Jimmy. And look, on paper, this Philadelphia team, without Joel Embiid, should not be able to guard anyone, to be honest with you. With the exception, of course, Thybulle being on the floor. I'm telling you that they played good team defense against Toronto that made me believe in them. But on paper, I don't see that. On paper, they shouldn't be able to do a damn thing. They just have too much. They're lacking in athleticism in too many areas to, in theory, be able to stay in front of the Jimmy Butlers and the Tyler Heroes and the players that are Oladipo. Those guys should be able to step in front of those Philadelphia 76ers to get blow-bys repeatedly, in theory. But that, like I said, that didn't necessarily plan out that way in Toronto. They were still able to play good team defense. So I'm believing in Philadelphia based on what I've seen from them in terms of effort, heart, and working together. James Harden had that team playing together. They were getting things out of guys that otherwise they weren't in that last game. And if that can carry forward, maybe, just maybe, they can put some fear in the hearts of the Miami Heat. But on paper, that should not happen. So I'm going to tell you the truth. On paper, without Joel Embiid, the Miami Heat should actually sweep the Philadelphia 76ers. If I'm being completely honest with you, they should, on paper, sweep the Sixers if Joel does not play a single game in the series. However, I think Philadelphia is going to find ways of putting interesting lineups on the floor, small ball lineups that give them an opportunity. And if James Harden plays the way I think he will, which is well, they're going to find a way to squeeze out a game. So I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that. A game. 2 games is tough. It's not giving enough respect to how good Miami is, defensively and offensively. They're better than to let a Joel-less team beat them. So with the assumption that Joel does not play a single game in this series, Miami in 5. With the assumption that Joel does come back in this series, it does depend on when he returns. If he comes back in game 2, it could change everything. If he comes back in game 4, 5, so I don't feel comfortable making any type of decision with the assumption that he will return, because I just don't know. No prediction there. But assuming he's out for the entire series, Miami in 5. It's just too many weapons, man. Miami got too many weapons. You're talking about, like I said, Gabe Vincent and Max Strus were the guys that smoked the Atlanta Hawks. Okay? And I'd say those are like the 8th and 9th option on this Miami Heat team. So that lets you know where Miami is in terms of their trust in their entire roster, the comfort that they put in the confidence that they instill in their entire roster to do the things that they do comfortably, the system that they run, and not needing to be stars in that system in order to be successful. They should outclass them. They should outclass Philly. They should. Philly's a good team, especially if they got Joel, but they're going to get outclassed by a team that's been together, that has a system, like I said, that works together, as to where Philly just came together, a couple months ago with the James Harden trade? Nah. Everything's pointing in Miami, you guys. So, I'm going to roll with that. Miami in 5, BDF 44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out. Oh, and as far as this particular game, since we're talking about this series, we got to talk about this particular game. Today's game, or tomorrow's game rather, it's going to be in Miami. And because it's going to be a hell of an adjustment for Philly, having not played without Joel Embiid all this time, now having to step in and figure it out without him, that's going to probably take a game and a half to figure out. I got Miami winning that first game in their own home. Yeah, no prediction as far as the score or anything like that, but I think Miami will take the first game at home. So that's what I got. BDF 44. Thank y'all for watching. I'm out.